Women who are in violent industries have to prove themselves more than men. There is a tendency for women to be more violent than men.
You probably know Netflix's Queen of the South, brave and ruthless Teresa Mendoza, who will stop at nothing to gain the upper hand on the Mexican drug cartel. But what if I told you this character is based on a real female narco from Guatemala, Marlori Chacon Rosell?
She was part of this web that went right to the top of Guatemala's political as well as criminal elite. She was absolutely right in the eye of the storm.
That's right. It's slowly becoming clear just how big of a part women play in the Central and South American narcotics trade. Forget about Pablo Escobar and El Chapo. Las Patronas are taking the world by storm. Marlori Chacon was sentenced to 26 years in prison. 5 years later, she walked free. How did she do this? Let's explore this and many other questions surrounding the real Queen of the South. Marlori Chacon Rosell was born in Guatemala City, the capital of Guatemala, on October 4th, 1972. The first thing that became clear about Marlori was she was very smart.
I spoke to a former DEA agent and he said that had Marjorie been in the legal world, she could have reached CEO position in some big company, that she was very astute and had very high-end skills, and it just so happens that she decided to apply those in the trade instead.
Indeed. Marlori was never interested in the legal world. It's unclear whether her family had any ties to the Guatemalan cartels or whether she chose this path on her own. But Marlori was pretty young when she decided she was going to make the big bucks in the criminal underworld. After finishing high school, she enrolled in a university to study psychology. But after a few years, she dropped out and pursued the narcotics trade instead. She soon became one of Guatemala's top money launderers. Then, she became one of Central America's top money launderers. According to the DEA, she was once cleaning $10 million every month. She was doing a lot of this for the big Mexican cartels. The U.S. Treasury said,
Marlori Chacon's drug trafficking activities and her ties to the Mexican drug cartels make her a critical figure in the narcotics trade.
And you know how it is in the South American cartels. To climb to the top, you have to be extra ruthless. For Marlori, there was never an option to lay low. She wanted to get to the very top of the trade. She had all the money laundering skills one could have. But there was one thing she still lacked. To become the boss of a big cartel, you have to have connections, lots of them. So Marlori took her time and built relations all around Guatemala. First, there was Marlori's first drug deal in April 2004. She had promised to move a ton of coke to Colombia through Honduras. It was an $8 million deal, but Marlori's first buyer had pulled out. So she secured a new deal with Eliu Lorenzana, a powerful drug boss and the younger brother of Don Valde. Soon enough, she had a network full of drug bosses and ruthless criminal business people. Then came Las Patronas, a network of female narcos bosses in Guatemala, Mexico, Honduras, and El Salvador. These weren't just business-savvy women who laid low and laundered money for their male colleagues. They were vicious.
I mean, I was told she was sending out hits on people. I was told her brothers would kidnap young women, take them up to their mansion, rape them, pass them around the security guards.
And Marlori wasn't an innocent bystander either. She might have used her feminine charms to secure deals with cartel men, but before anything, she intimidated people with the many security guards that always surrounded her. Juan, a former cartel member, recalls,
She was a woman with a big presence and very intimidating because of the kind of people she was surrounded by. She moved with security everywhere. There was always someone at the door.
But Marlori didn't just buy the security guards herself, because by now, she had ties to the top dogs in the Guatemalan government. This is how she earned her nickname, the Queen of the South. Marlori had befriended people with very high functions in the government.
She was part of this web that went right to the top of Guatemala's political as well as criminal elite. She was absolutely right in the eye of the storm.
That's why she felt invincible. She and her business were protected by the government itself.
Marlori was guarded by the National Police. She had 3 or 4 cars with her from the Ministry of the Interior. It was security that was assigned to her.
Marlori was particularly close to Guatemala's Interior Minister, Mauricio Lopez Bonilla. No one knows exactly how close they were, that is to say, if they were involved romantically. They were best buds, or simply tied through lust for money and power. But at one point in 2013, there were reports of Bonilla visiting Marlory at home. He was the one who greenlit Marlory's 24/7 protection as she moved from town to town, securing high-end narcotics deals. The security guards ordered by Bonilla even protected Marlory's many drug traffickers. He was officially keeping the cartel safe. Marlory was also friends with Roxana Baldetti, Guatemala's vice president. It's easy to see why she felt invincible. She could do anything she liked with official protection from the government. She could launder money, order hits, and secure transactions worth millions of dollars, all while climbing to the top of the Guatemalan cartel. The Queen of the South felt like no one could take her down, but things were about to take a drastic turn. As in the cases of Pablo Escobar and El Chapo, Marlory Chacon didn't limit herself to transporting drugs between Central and South American countries. Huge shipments of white powder would arrive in the US under her command. So by the mid-2010s, the DEA got involved. What would you do if you found out the DEA was on your tail, tracking your movements, and perhaps speaking to your crew?
Marjorie was incredibly valuable to the DEA. And when they sanctioned her, she realized that if she wanted to stay out of prison for the rest of her life, she was going to have to cooperate substantially.
That's right. Marlory didn't fight her cartel. In fact, she decided that if she was going down, she was going to take the whole cartel down with her. Marlory didn't even wait to be arrested by the DEA. As soon as they made contact, she flipped. She said she was going to help them take down her entire Guatemalan cartel and indict the corrupt ones at the top. Mauricio Lopez Bonilla and Roxana Baldetti were amongst the first ones arrested by the US authorities.
Los testimonios de Chacón sirvieron para encauzar y condenar a varios acusados de narcotráfico y lavado de dinero, incluidos los empresarios Lorenzana de Guatemala.
Do you remember Eliu Lorenzana? He was the first drug boss Marlory went into business with. This is how ruthless she was. She was giving the DEA every single name she'd ever worked with. Why? On one hand, she wanted to make sure no one would come after her. On the other hand, she wanted to ensure her freedom, as she knew she was facing serious prison time. Roxana Baldetti and Mauricio Lopez Bonilla were both sentenced to prison in Guatemala on corruption charges. When their terms are over, they will most likely be extradited to the US to face charges. This means more prison time for the both of them. Interestingly, Bonilla was once the most important security contact for the United States in Guatemala on security and counter narcotics, so it's pretty shocking that he was protecting Marlory at the same time. What's even more shocking is Marlory's prison sentence. In 2014, she was facing 26 years in prison on several charges including drug trafficking and money laundering. She was supposed to serve this many years in Miami Federal Prison. The next year, she received a reduced sentence of 12 years. And in 2019, Marlory was freed on bail. She was freed after spending less than 5 years in prison. This goes to show just how much ratting on your former allies can reduce your sentence. But don't feel too bad for them. Cartels are usually a dog-eat-dog world. And if you think it's pretty badass for a woman to be an active member of the cartel, guess again. Most of these women are subjected to hard labor and minimal pay.
Nosotros somos pobres, sembramos, vendemos la hojita para mantener nuestro hogar y nuestros hijos educarlos. Dice que va a haber apoyo para dejar sembrar las cocas. Hasta el día de hoy, ¿qué apoyo? Nada, ningún apoyo para nosotros.
Some women make it to the higher ranks, like paid assassins, but they often die young and a truly gruesome death. Remember La Flaca? She was left dismembered in various boxes around Mexico. She was around 20 years old. And the very few that make it to the top are so violent that it's no longer badass. When you kill and maim to get to the top of the trade, there's nothing empowering about it. There's another twist here. Female narcos often end up more violent than men just to prove themselves in this nasty business.
People who I know who have gotten close to women who've been as powerful as them say that women who are in violent industries, and this does absolutely relate to legal industries too, have to prove themselves more than men. There is a tendency for women to be more violent than men so that the men who are around them will take them seriously.
Women have been seen for so long as wives, girlfriends, or victims of infamous cartel men that many cartel men don't believe women are capable of violence. And this could be seen in the case of Marlori Chacon, too. Apparently, during her Sebastiana Cotton Vasquez trials, the Lorenzana brothers were openly mocking them and interrupting their testimonies. In the end, the two women got their last words by testifying against them and seeing them jailed for life, while they got reduced sentences. After she was freed, Marlori never returned to Guatemala. It's unknown exactly where she lives, but it's safe to say she won't be visiting her home country too soon. After you've testified against pretty much all your former allies, it's probably unsafe to walk those streets. And with her politician friends in jail, it's unlikely she'll ever have official protection again. The Queen of the South's reign seems to have ended. She will have to live a normal, middle-class life now, staying out of trouble and giving zero reasons for the DEA to arrest her again. Now, while some newspapers claim Netflix's Queen of the South is based on Marlori's character, others say it's based on Sandra Avila Beltran. She was once nicknamed the Queen of the Pacific, and she was also a high-ranking cartel boss who ordered huge white powder shipments into the US. So it's hard to say if it was just one or another who inspired the series, or if the directors took inspiration from both female narcos. What's clear is that we live in an age that's finally recognizing the violent and ruthless women of the criminal underworld, and many of them are still out there. Who knows? Maybe even the Queen of the South is somewhere out there making sketchy deals in the shadows. Or perhaps she's just watching the Netflix show bearing her old name, reminiscing about days long gone. Necrophilia is a term that is described as indulging in carnal pleasures with a corpse. And what if you found out that there is a necrophiliac killer roaming around the streets of Mexico who killed just for this purpose? Such is the story of 28-year-old Juana, or La Peque, meaning the little one. In the past few years, the Mexican cartels have claimed more than 150,000 lives through their blatant killing sprees and rivalries. In Latin America, the number of imprisoned women have increased dramatically over the last 25 years. This number has almost doubled from less than 40,000 women in the early 2000s to over 74,000 women prisoners in the region in 2011. Although women are still a minority in prisons, making up only about 6% of Latin America's incarcerated population, the number of women behind bars is growing disproportionately compared to men. And thanks to these cartels, most of these women are in prison for narco offenses. Apart from selling substances and arms, these cartels also hire sicarios or hitmen. But in the past few years, these cartels have started hiring female assassins known as sicarias. They are also thirsty and fame-hungry killers. Many sicarias post their photos with guns on social media sites. They also flaunt their money and even tigers. Most of these women aren't in prison for large-scale trafficking or violent offenses, but rather for non-violent offenses related to micro-trafficking and small-scale possession of illegal substances. While there are some exceptions, women often enter the illegal substance trade as small-time mules and have little chance of advancement in terms of economic income and decision-making power. Women are trapped in a cycle of poverty and crime because of their limited mobility. Well, such is the story of Juana, or La Peque. Juana was born in Jalisco, Mexico. At a very young age, she was romantically involved with a guy more than 20 years her age. At the age of 15, Juana had a child, and the child's father left her. Juana had no money and couldn't feed her child, so she took to street work. Gradually, she met one of the most technologically advanced Mexican cartels called Los Zetas. Juana said that she worked in a bar where the feared Los Zetas charged 5,000 pesos bi-weekly. But the more the business earned, the more the bar was charged. Then a person would come and tell you, "We are from the Zetas, and you have to pay them money if you want to continue with your business. If the bar owner doesn't pay and doesn't close the deal, they're screwed." And the Zetas will help them. But those who pay the amount receive protection. For the Zetas, it's just a matter of saying, "So-and-so is going too far." And at that moment, the hitman arrived to resolve things. But things were going to change for Juana. Her brother got into a mess with the cartel and was killed. She found out that her brother's wife and the Zetas commander who killed her brother had been dismembered and burned. One afternoon when they met another Zetas commander, he asked them, "Do you know where your brother is? What's been done with him? Was he Juana answered yes to the first two questions and no to the last one. "That's good. Keep that consolation. You and your mom know where to go to cry, where to take a flower. Besides, you know that they didn't torture him," the Zetas commander told them. What's left to console? Juana thought, but didn't say anything. After this, Juana herself joined the cartel. In countries like Ecuador, Venezuela, Nicaragua, Panama, and Argentina, more than 80% of women in prison are in prison for narcotic offenses. In other Latin American countries, the population for women in prison for these offenses is between 30 and 60% of the total female prison population, and young Juana chose this as her career path. Juana found a way to make money with them. She was incorporated into the cartel at a young age. At first, Juana had small responsibilities. Juana was now officially involved with the Los Zetas cartel and was given the title of Halconeo. As an Halconeo, she was supposed to keep an eye on the rival gangs and police so that other members of Zetas don't get caught. But even that was tough terrain for Juana to walk upon. Juana said that if she did not do her job well, she would be chained and fed only one taco a day. Such was the gruesome and treacherous terror that the Zetas operated on. But as time passed by, Juana started getting bigger responsibilities. She was still a teenager when she saw a Zeta cartel member smash a person's head with a mace. There was blood all over, and this terrified Juana, but she slowly became desensitized to gore. Juana was then honored with a nickname. She was now called La Peque, or the Little One. It might be because her stature or age. After being around the most violent murders daily, her desensitization turned into something worse. She started getting attracted to cruel violence. Juana was now a respected member of the Zetas cartel and was promoted to a Sicaria. However, the story doesn't end there. In a recent blog that Juana wrote from inside the jail, she gave pretty graphic and gruesome details about her story as a Sicaria. She said that the sight of blood was magnetic to her. After she would kill her victim, she would cut their head off and drench herself in them. She would also drink their liquids while it was warm. But not just this, some Zetas cartel members also said that La Peque was fond of pleasuring herself with the carcass of the victim after she had killed them. She would use their head and other body parts to have intimate relations with the deceased victim. But Juana is not frightening at all. A lot of these Sicarias and cartel mules often post their photographs on social media. In one photo, Juana looks like a model for a gun company. She has beautiful red hair, a charming body, and an innocent smile. The only dangerous thing about this photograph is that Juana is holding a machine gun in her hand. Apart from the gun, everything about Juana looks normal. From some of these photos, we can see she wants to be seen as a threat. After all, Juana confessed to killing 5 men, drinking their warm liquids, and deriving intimate pleasures from their carcasses. In 2016, she was caught after killing 5 men and sentenced to prison in California. In her blog, she gave grotesque and emotional details of her life. Ever since I was a little girl, I was a rebel, and then became a substance addict and an alcoholic. This throws light on why she was attracted to the cartel life, but these cases get more distorted from here on. She also wrote on her blog that after she saw a head crushed with a mace, she felt that she was scarred for life. I remember feeling sad and thinking I did not want to end up like that. Maybe it was fear that provoked her to become as disturbed as her fellow cartel friends in order to avoid getting violent or murdered. But then as you continue to read her blog, you instantly realize how depraved she is. She continues, "I feel excited by it, rubbing myself in it and bathing in it after killing a victim. And I even drank it when it was still warm." However, this is not the end of her story. Juana has plans for herself in the future. At the end of her blog, she writes, "When I get out of prison, I could work again with the cartel, but I don't want to. This served me as an experience, and not so much because of the confinement. The confinement does not end you. The personal experiences that you lived while in confinement finish you off. Here in jail, my parents died, but when I leave here, I will leave with one hand behind and the other in front. I will find myself in great financial need, and who is going to pay me 8,000 pesos a day to just be on the street for 4 hours? It's always tempting to come back." Juana is still lucky that she got to be a Sicarius. Most often, women in cartels are subjected to dangerous and victimizing roles. Whether young or elderly, women transport illicit substances by strapping them to their bodies, swallowing plastic capsules filled with these substances, or inserting these capsules into themselves. This becomes deadly if the substance-filled capsules burst while inside the body. The money they get for doing this is extremely low. A woman who works as a low-level mule may be subject to maximum prison sentence due to harsh narcotic laws in Latin America. However, the question remains, why do cartels hire women assassins? There are many answers to these questions. Some researchers say that in the past few years, men have died and most of their wives have been widowed and left with no money. These widowed women then contribute to their husband's legacy. And there are other reasons too. In this falling economy where people are losing jobs and spending money has become a problem. These drug cartels offer an affluent amount of luxuries to the people. But these cartels don't usually hire educated people. They hire vulnerable people who would do anything for money. And that is a place where these hit women typically come. Most of these kids are either kidnapped from their households at a very young age, or they come from a place where they have no emotional or mental support from their family, or they come from elaborate prostitution rings. Many hit women have dead or fleeing husbands, and they have babies to feed. The cartels give them money, freedom, fame, and even a daunting stature in the criminal world. But these crimes committed by Juana are much more than just being a mule. This is the story of an innocent girl who was lured into cartel life and taken to necrophilia.
Deportaron a la narco modelo colombiana Angie Sanclemente Valencia. Había sido detenida el 2011 por integrar una banda que enviaba cocaína a España. La condenaron a 6 años, pero va a quedar libre al llegar a su país porque cumplió la mitad.
Comenzó esta mañana en los tribunales de Comodoro Pi el juicio a la modelo colombiana Angie Sanclemente Valencia, también a otras 5 personas acusadas de intentar traficar droga rumbo a España desde el aeropuerto internacional de Seiza. Estos son los detalles.
Yo soy una niña que simplemente quiso cumplir un sueño y no pensó que iba a perjudicar a nadie.
It's really laughable for a person who built a formidable empire of narco trafficking to say they didn't think it would harm anyone. They're either truly ignorant or they decided to say something stupid on purpose. That was the stunning beauty queen, Angie Sanclemente Valencia, the woman whose ambition took her from poverty to a life of glamour. But behind the scenes, she was also the leader of one of the world's largest illegal substance trafficking rings. Now, how did this woman go from being a model to a narco queen? Let's find out in this video. Angie Sanclemente Valencia was born on May 25, 1979, in Barranquilla, Colombia. She grew up in a middle-class family with her parents and 2 sisters. She was a bright, ambitious girl who dreamed of becoming a famous model and actress. From 14 years old, she started participating in beauty pageants and won several local titles over the years. Right from when she was a little girl, Angie always had a natural beauty and charisma that made her stand out from the crowd. She was a rising star who had a promising future ahead of her. She proceeded to study communication and journalism at the Universidad Autónoma del Caribe, but she dropped out after 2 years to pursue her modeling career. Her life took a dramatic turn in the year 2000 when she won the prestigious Reinado Internacional del Café, International Queen of Coffee, beauty pageant in Manizales, Colombia. Having impressed the judges with her stunning looks, charisma, and intelligence, she was crowned as the most beautiful woman among 23 contestants from different countries. You can imagine how overjoyed and proud she was to represent her country on the international stage. Plus, this was supposed to be the pinnacle of her career. But her happiness was short-lived. 2 days after her coronation, she was dethroned and stripped of her title. The reason? She was married. The organizers of the pageant discovered that she had secretly married a Colombian businessman named Harold Barrios in 1998, violating the rules that required the contestants to be single. At first, she denied the allegations, but later admitted that she had lied about her marital status. Her explanation was that she had separated from him shortly after the wedding, but they never divorced. She begged for forgiveness and asked for a second chance, but it was too late. The damage had already been done. She lost her crown and her reputation. She was humiliated and disgraced by the media and the public. Angie became a national scandal. This moment marked the beginning of her downfall as she felt betrayed and bitter by the people who had once praised and admired her. She felt angry and resentful towards the world that had rejected and judged her. She felt lonely and desperate for a new start, but she did not let this setback stop her from pursuing her dream.
Fue una mezcla. La ambición, yo fui muy ambiciosa y la ambición rompe el saco, empezando.
¿Y cuál era tu ambición?
So she decided it was time to leave Colombia and move to Mexico, where she hoped to find new opportunities and a new life. But little did she know that this decision would lead her to a darker and more dangerous path than she ever imagined. In 2005, she moved to Mexico, where she continued her modeling career. This time, she was determined to prove herself as a model and an actress and regain her lost fame and glory.
Yo soy una niña que simplemente quiso cumplir un sueño y no pensó que iba a perjudicar a nadie.
Fortunately for her, she already had the natural beauty and charm, so she quickly caught the eye of many agents, producers, and directors who offered her lucrative contracts and roles. Everything seemed good with her, and she had everything she ever dreamed of: fame, fortune, and happiness. It was during this time that she got romantically involved with a man who would change her life forever. He was known as the Monster, a powerful and wealthy narco lord who controlled a large network of illegal substance trafficking from Colombia to Europe via Mexico. The Monster was also involved in other criminal activities such as money laundering, kidnapping, extortion, and murder. He was notorious for his violence and cruelty, as well as his lavish lifestyle and extravagant parties. Angie's beauty and charm attracted him to her, and Angie, on her side, fell for the lifestyle and status he offered. So they hit it off right away and started a passionate relationship, which also got Angie involved in his illegal substance trafficking empire. At first, everything was great. They did business together, they had fun, they traveled, they were in love. However, things soon took a dark turn when the couple fell out and separated afterwards. Angie decided it was time to take a walk and build her own illegal substance trafficking empire. She started by contacting some of her former associates from the time she was still with the Monster, and together they formed her own cartel. Soon she moved to Argentina, where she set up her base of operations, and it was around this time she met her new partner in crime, Nicolas Gualco. Together they recruited other young models as mules, paying them upwards of $5,000 per trip to transport illegal substances from Argentina to Europe via Mexico. She used her contacts in the fashion industry and the airport security to facilitate her operation. Angie referred to her mules as her unsuspicious, beautiful angels, who could easily pass through customs without raising any suspicion. She targeted high-end markets such as London, Paris, Milan, and Madrid, where she charged up to $15,000 for a pound of In just a few months, Angie made millions of dollars from her illegal business, and soon she became known as the Narco Queen, or the Queen of
La ex reina del café ahora es buscada por la Interpol por supuestamente liderar una organización de las llamadas mulas.
Angie's narco empire seemed unstoppable, as she had a loyal and efficient team of couriers who delivered her illegal substances across the world without being detected. Business was booming, and everything was good, as she had a huge, profitable market where she sold her merchandise at premium prices. However, Angie's downfall began on December 13th, 2009, when one of her mules, a 21-year-old model named Maria Noel Lopez Iglesias, was arrested at Ezeiza International Airport in Buenos Aires, Argentina. She was carrying a suitcase containing 121 pounds of illegal substances, worth about $2.5 million. Upon her arrest and interrogation, Maria confessed that she was working for Angie, whom she knew as Angie Valeria Santana, or Angie Valeria Valencia. She revealed that Angie had recruited her through Facebook by offering her a modeling job in Europe and paying her $5,000 for each trip. According to her, Angie would instruct her to fly to Cancun, Mexico, where she would meet another person who would give her the merchandise and tickets to Europe. Based on Maria's testimony, the authorities launched an investigation and issued an arrest warrant for Angie. They also arrested 3 other suspects: Nicolas Gualco, Angie's boyfriend, Gustavo Paez Arneses, an airport employee, and Daniel Monroy Miranda, a Mexican national who supplied the merchandise. With these arrests, the authorities seized more evidence that linked them to the narco ring, such as phone records, bank transactions, and confessions from other models who had worked as mules for Angie. However, finding Angie was not easy. She had changed her appearance by dyeing her hair blonde and wearing contact lenses. She had also used false names and documents to evade detection.
La verdad ha sido el capítulo más horroroso que me pasó en toda mi vida. Es muy duro haber llevado también el peso de 7 coimputados y las cargas de cada uno.
During the time, she moved from one place to another, hiding in different hotels, hostels, and serviced apartments. She also had cut off contact with most of her associates, except for a few trusted ones who helped her hide and escape. As the search for her intensified, she even tried to flee the country by crossing the border to Chile or Uruguay, but failed due to the tight security measures. For 5 months, Angie was on the run. She became one of the most wanted fugitives in Argentina and Colombia. Her pictures were featured all over the place, on several local and international media outlets as the narco queen or the queen of coke. Soon she became a sensation and a scandal in the world of beauty and fashion. Some people admired her for her courage and cunning, while others despised her for her crimes and corruption. However, her days as a fugitive were numbered. The authorities were gradually closing in on her. They had tracked her movements and precise location. On May 26, 2010, Angie was staying in a youth hostel in Buenos Aires, Argentina, where she registered under a fake name, Ana Solis. On that day, a team of officers raided the hostel, where they found Angie hiding in one of the rooms. When the police approached her, she tried to resist and deny the charges. She claimed that she was innocent and framed by her ex-boyfriend. She said that she was not Angie Sanclemente Valencia, but Ana Solis, a student from Colombia who was traveling in Argentina. To prove herself, she presented them her fake ID and passport, but the officers were not buying any of her stories because they had enough evidence and testimonies that linked her to the narco ring. Angie was arrested and taken to a federal prison in Ezeiza, Buenos Aires, where she faced charges of illegal substance trafficking and racketeering, and if convicted, she faced up to 16 years in prison. Angie's arrest was a major breakthrough for the authorities. They had finally caught the narco queen, who had eluded them for months. They had also dismantled her narco ring, which had smuggled tons of illegal substances from South America to Europe. Angie's trial began on October 18, 2010, in a federal court in Buenos Aires, Argentina. She faced charges of illegal substance trafficking and racketeering, which carried a maximum penalty of 16 years in prison. She pleaded not guilty and maintained her innocence throughout the trial. She said she had nothing to do with the narco ring and that she had come to Argentina to marry her lover, Nicolas Gualco, but did not know that he was dealing in illegal substances. She accused Nicolas of framing and betraying her. However, the prosecution presented a different story. They said Angie was the mastermind and leader of the narco ring, who used her beauty and charm to recruit other young models as mules. They said she had contacts and connections in the fashion industry and airport security who helped her run her operation smoothly and secretly. Evidence retrieved from her social media accounts showed that she used platforms like Facebook and Instagram to communicate with her couriers and clients using code words and emojis. They said she targeted high-end markets such as London, Paris, Milan, and Madrid, where she sold her merchandise at premium prices. The prosecution went on to present various categories of evidence and witnesses to support their claims. They presented phone records, bank transactions, and various documents that linked Angie to the narco ring. There were also testimonies from other suspects who had been arrested or convicted in connection with the case, such as Maria, Nicolas Gualco, and other models who had worked as mules for Angie. They all confirmed that Angie was the boss and that she had paid them or instructed them to smuggle merchandise for her. Meanwhile, the defense tried to counter the prosecution's arguments and evidence. They questioned the credibility and reliability of the witnesses who said they were coerced or bribed by the authorities to testify against Angie. They also challenged the validity and authenticity of the evidence, which they said were tampered with or fabricated by the police or her ex-boyfriend, who they believed was still aggrieved with Angie for leaving him. They also argued that Angie was not a flight risk or a danger to society, and that she deserved bail or house arrest until the verdict was reached. The trial lasted for 2 weeks, during which both sides presented their cases and cross-examined each other's witnesses. The judge heard all the arguments and evidence and then retired to deliberate with the jury. The verdict was announced on November 3, 2010. Angie Sanclemente Valencia was found guilty of narcotics trafficking and racketeering. She was sentenced to 6 years and 8 months in prison. Her boyfriend, Nicolas Gualco, received the same sentence, alongside several other accomplices who were also jailed or given suspended sentences. Angie was jailed at the Centro Federal de Detención de Mujeres Unidad número 31 in the city of Ezeiza, province of Buenos Aires, Argentina.
Sumergida en un pozo profundo de oscuridad. Entonces, muy complejo, muy doloroso.
But after suffering a violent attack in prison, she was moved to another prison, also in Ezeiza.
Bueno, cuando casi me estaba ahorcando una compañera en el piso y tuve que entrarle a eso porque me estaba ahorcando. O sea, me quedé toda morada, me partieron un diente, quedé toda morada y me estaba ahorcando. Yo creo que y la lucha de que ella quería volver al pabellón a matarme.
However, she was eventually released from prison and deported back to Colombia on September 27, 2013, after serving barely half of her original 6-year, 8-month prison sentence.
Después de estar 3 años y medio. Tienes mucho tiempo para pensar y reflexionar.
But she's never to be seen anywhere around the borders of Argentina ever again. Meanwhile, Angie seemed to have learned her lessons because she finally admitted she was involved in a business that kills people.
La verdad ha sido el capítulo más horroroso que me pasó en toda mi vida. Es muy duro haber llevado también el peso de 7 coimputados y las cargas de cada uno. Realmente creo que yo también me las busqué. Y después de analizar a profundidad toda mi vida, lo que te voy a decir, vas a decir, está loca, pero creo que necesitaba pasar por la cárcel para poderme concientizar de muchas cosas en la vida. Entonces creo que lo merecía.
In all these, a lot of people think that Angie deserved what she got, while there are others who think she was just a normal person who unfortunately got caught up in a dark web of narco trafficking because of the relationships she kept. But do you think she got what she deserved, or was she just a victim of the circumstances? Please share your thoughts on this with us in the comments below. And if you've enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. Thanks for watching. Until next time, stay safe.